Tonight, parts of Nova Scotia underwater and under siege after record rain and flash floods. Roads washed away, people forced to flee, rescues from high above and down below.
I've never seen such violent downpours that we've had.
A province-wide state of emergency and the desperate search for those who may have been swept away.
I know the entire province joins me in praying for their safe return.
Plus, relentless heat with no sign of relief. The U.S. bakes in searing temperatures as wildfires burn in Greece.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening. The mayor of Halifax is calling it rain of biblical proportions. Nearly 300 millimeters, that's about 3 months' worth, started falling overnight, and it came fast and furious and affected not just the city, but much of central Nova Scotia. This is Bedford today, the Halifax suburb, wet and waterlogged, parts looking very much like a disaster zone. The historic flooding washed out roads and damaged infrastructure. From Bridgewater to the Annapolis Valley and Truro, the rain kept coming. Evacuation orders were issued for hard-hit areas. And the search is underway for 4 people, including 2 children who are missing. CTV's Sarah Plowman begins our coverage.
A rescuer races to save someone stuck in a tree. The road below is now a river. One of several airlifts as Nova Scotia receives 3 months worth of rain in one day.
2 children are unaccounted for following an incident in West Hants where the vehicle they were traveling in was submerged.
Police say 3 others with those children did escape. In a separate incident, police say a youth and a man are also unaccounted for.
When they were traveling in a vehicle which also got submerged in West Hants. 2 of the 4 occupants in this vehicle were rescued.
Rushing water has washed out countless culverts and roads. This one in Newport Corner.
We were in the shed and we looked outside after all the lightning and all that, and it was just the water was up that high and the cars were about to float away. So we grabbed a bunch of our stuff and off we went.
Lawns are now ponds, homes, islands. Colin Rogers just got back from Prince Edward Island.
Well, just look at the carnage there. Look at that truck's never going to run again. My garage is gone. Pretty wild, pretty wild.
With main routes washed out, firefighters are using zip lines to move people and supplies across. Throughout the storm, they were rescuers.
Several vehicles that we did get patients out of. Some were out of the vehicles, sitting on the vehicles. A few people had been swept by water, were into trees, things like that. So the current just was so strong.
A search is ongoing for 4 missing people in this area. It includes an underwater recovery team and DNRR.
I cannot stop thinking about these families and these 4 individuals, and I want them to know that everything that can be done is being done. I know the entire province joins me in praying for their safe return.
Police are asking people not to leave their homes to help with the search, as conditions are too dangerous. Sarah Plowman, CTV News in West Hants.
This afternoon, Nova Scotia also declared a state of emergency in Halifax and regions along the coast, including Lunenburg, as the torrential rain triggered flash flooding, and you can see why there's concern. Just look at this white-knuckle landing at Halifax's Stanfield International Airport, video taken by a passenger. The downpour started overnight, and in the light of day, the extent of the destructive deluge became clear, as CTV's Hafsa Arif reports.
A powerful thunderstorm and heavy rain tearing through the Bedford and Sackville areas of the Halifax region, leaving behind a trail of destruction and devastation. With unrelenting force, the disaster struck, flooding streets, pouring into homes.
Fast-moving river, and it came into my house right up to my top floor. and I don't know if anything's left.
Basements and upper levels flooded and sewer pipes burst. Many locals were evacuated last night, taken to comfort centers by firefighters.
Firemen come to our door and said we had 5 minutes to leave and they would help us to get into the fire truck last night.
Rain poured through ceilings into the mall. Abandoned vehicles submerged in parking lots and roads in the area. Debris and severe pavement damage in many streets and driveways, including this church.
And this is the first thing I've seen, and I'm shocked by it and disappointed because it's going to hold up our entry to our parking lot.
This baseball field in Bedford submerged entirely from the downpour, with sheds almost underwater.
I've never experienced a weather system quite like this before with the amount of rain we had in such a short time. But I'm just, at this point now, I'm just hoping all our football gear is okay.
Emergency responders and authorities went into action yesterday. Search and rescue used boats to help residents stuck in their homes, covering ground as far as West Hants.
This is the first time that we've been deployed on flooding. It's a high scale. It's something that I haven't seen before in approximately 15 years to see it to this extent.
A challenging road to recovery after destruction and devastation that rainstorms leave behind. Hafsa Arif, CTV News, Halifax.
Those in the know say this could well be the heaviest rainfall in Nova Scotia since Hurricane Beth more than 50 years ago. And it's not over yet. The system is on the move. So we asked CTV Atlantic Chief Meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell how long the storm will last and where it's headed next. Kaylin.
This rain is going to continue to progress a little bit further towards the east as we make our way through tonight and into Sunday morning. There'll be risk of some downpours and thunderstorms arriving for areas of Newfoundland, especially around the southern coast, as we make our way into and through Sunday. And because of that, there's still some rainfall warnings out. Eastern areas, Nova Scotia could pick up some additional rainfall totals of 30 to 60 millimeters. And that southwest southern area of Newfoundland could pick up some rainfall totals of between 50 and 150 millimeters of rain. Sandy.
Kaylin Mitchell in Halifax. Thank you, Kaylin. And it's not just Nova Scotia officials reassuring residents, but the Prime Minister, who today weighed in on what to do during this emergency.
This is a time for people to listen to local authorities on how to stay safe and how to make sure we're all being there for each other.
And there was this tweet from the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, a promise of government support if needed. Well, violent summer storms are also on the move in the U.S. Northeast. Floodwater came gushing down on baseball fans in Boston's Fenway Park last night, suspending the game. Then there's the dangerous heat, not just in America, but Europe, where wildfires have forced people to flee. CTV's Jill Makashon puts it all together for us.
In the glow of fire, the Greek island of Rhodes was the center of an emergency evacuation. Roughly 2,000 tourists moved to safety by the Greek Coast Guard on ferries, even a Navy warship. The apocalyptic scene much different than the seaside vacation so many had dreamed of. This fire is one of hundreds burning in Greece. An extended heat wave now moving into record-breaking territory. In Athens, temperatures expected to rise to 45 degrees. Even nighttime is oppressively hot. Aphrodite Salis, a Canadian journalism instructor, is in Greece with 4 students from Montreal.
I keep getting alerts actually on my phone. Like the one that just came up on my phone now was telling me that there was a severe risk to people and property because of this weather, because of this heat.
This heat dome extending across southern Europe and across the Atlantic. In the U.S., 100 million people are under heat alerts from Florida to California. In Arizona, this now marks 22 consecutive days above 43 degrees Celsius. In Texas, people rushed to smash a van window to free a baby locked inside. The heat is also baking parts of Canada, including Yukon and Northwest Territories, southern Alberta, Saskatchewan, and parts of BC, where wildfires are still eating up forests. Firefighters from Brazil are now on the ground. Vancouver's airport hasn't recorded rain in 33 days now. Showers and thunderstorms are expected across much of BC next week, but the high temperatures and sunshine will return by Thursday. Sandy.
All right. CTV's Jill Makashon. Thanks, Jill. Well, one day after a former RCMP officer was charged with foreign interference-related offenses, security experts say he may have been involved in an anti-corruption campaign. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
As a Mountie, William Miker worked in the shadows, infiltrating drug cartels.
Over 20-plus years, I lived under a different identity.
After leaving policing, he moved to Hong Kong and started a company to help the Chinese government recover financial assets. He's now been charged with spying and intimidating an individual on behalf of China. This security expert says it's likely Miker was recruited to be part of Operation Fox Hunt.
It's likely that the information that was gleaned was used by the Chinese to ascertain where these people are.
Through Fox Hunt, Beijing would hire private investigators in foreign countries to track down Chinese nationals whom it accused of corruption. In 2016, during a visit by former Premier Li Keqiang, Canada and China signed an agreement to share in the recovery of forfeited assets.
I'm excited to develop and maintain a real partnership that will benefit all of our peoples for generations to come.
The tone changed in 2021, the same year the investigation into Miker began. Public Safety Canada warned Operation Fox Hunt is widely believed to have been used as a means to stifle regime criticism. But there were much earlier warnings. A top-secret intelligence document from 1986, obtained by the Canadian press, sounds the alarm about political tactics and secret operations China was using to exploit its diaspora.
It's not surprising that we've known about this for a long time. What is most disturbing about this is how long we haven't acted.
The decades-old intelligence report and the Miker case will increase pressure on the Liberal government to create a foreign agent registry, something it has promised but has yet to deliver. Sandy.
Judy, thank you. Russia delivered a new barrage of attacks on Ukraine that Kyiv says killed at least 8 people and damaged food export facilities. Airstrikes hit this grain terminal in Odessa as Western leaders accuse Moscow of trying to spark a global food crisis. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces struck an ammunition depot in Russian-annexed Crimea, forcing evacuations of civilians near the blast site. A young Canadian frontline worker killed in the line of duty while battling a BC wildfire was remembered today. Friends and family said an emotional farewell to 19-year-old Devon Gale. She was struck by a falling tree just outside her hometown. Her brother, also a colleague, was with her that day.
I'm grateful to have been close to you when the tree fell. I'm grateful to have been one of the people who pulled you out from under it because it meant I got a few extra minutes with you.
Gale is the first firefighter to die on the job in British Columbia in more than a decade.
We didn't only lose Reese that day, but we lost all the precious moments and milestones of life she looked forward to the most.
And a tribute in Toronto's busy Danforth area to 2 young people who were killed 5 years ago today when a gunman opened fire. 13 others were injured in one of the worst mass shootings in the city's history. Hundreds of residents gathered at the trees planted in honor of the 10-year-old and 18-year-old who died. Coming up, the beautiful game with a new goal.
Isn't just about creating opportunities for players, but it's also about opportunities for women in professional sport.
It's the stuff dreams are made of, plus ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Canada wants to turn soccer fortunes around at the Women's World Cup in Australia after a frustrating opening game on Thursday. The team is hoping to withstand the luck of the Irish in the next match. CTV's Melanie Nagy is in Melbourne. So, Mel, what's the plan?
Team Canada now heads to Western Australia to the city of Perth, where they will face Ireland on the pitch for their second World Cup game. The players have been in the country for several weeks, first for training camp.
Go Canada!
Then for their opening match against
We are Nigeria, we're gonna win!
40th ranked Nigeria. At that highly anticipated game, soccer superstar Christine Sinclair was unable to score during a penalty kick. With a quick one-handed save, Nigeria's goalie blocked the ball from going in. The match ended with a drop, leaving Canada with only 1 point so far in the group stage of the tournament, which is taking place not only in Australia but New Zealand. It's the first time there's been 2 hosts for the event. Also, it's the first time 32 teams are competing. FIFA says so far more than 1.4 million tickets have been sold to the event, which is a record. As for Team Canada, once they're done in Perth, they will return to Melbourne, where they will take on the Matildas. The Australian team is a favorite and is currently leading in group stage points. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Melbourne.
And Canada's game against Ireland can be seen on CTV and TSN. Coverage begins Wednesday at 7 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Pacific. Well, a Canadian soccer star is hoping to piggyback off all that attention on the World Cup. Her winning pedigree is at the center of what we can call a league of their own. CTV's John Flatters explains.
Two-time Olympic medalist Diana Matheson was in Saskatoon, giving a presentation on the future of professional women's soccer in Canada.
It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time.
Matheson scored the winning goal in extra time to win bronze for Canada in the 2012 Olympics. Now she's leading Project 8, an 8-team Canadian professional league that will start in 2025.
This was an incredible turnout tonight. I love coming to this city and so excited about the idea of bringing a pro women's soccer team to the Prairies in 2025.
The veteran of 4 World Cups with more than 200 appearances in the red and white wants to see a team in Saskatchewan.
People want professional sport here, and the fact that it's now going to be here, it's going to be the first women's professional league of any kind. As Saskatchewan Soccer, we will do everything that we can to support it.
Matheson says it's not just the athletes on the pitch who will benefit from a professional league.
What we're doing with this Women's Pro League isn't just about creating opportunities for players, which it absolutely is, but it's also about opportunities for women in professional sport, and women in the boardroom, and women in the media, and women owners. So it's about building that whole ecosystem as well.
Mohammed says the province has an opportunity for a franchise, but only if the community jumps on board.
We absolutely have every opportunity in front of us right now. It's just time for us to make it happen.
The league has been recognized by Soccer Canada with 3 teams already announced in Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto. It also has major corporate sponsors signed on for when the league plans to kick off in 2025. John Flatters, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Still ahead, playing for the top prize.
This is the biggest tournament I've played in.
A pinball championship takes us on a sentimental journey. Hundreds are showing off their pinball prowess at one of the world's biggest tournaments, this one in Edmonton this weekend. The hobby sport is all about strategy, quick reflexes, and fast flippers, and it's generating lots of nostalgia. As CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier reports.
For many, these were the sights and sounds of childhood. But this is bigger than most arcades, and for hundreds here, pinball is still a big deal. The Yegpin Expo is Canada's biggest pinball competition.
This is the biggest tournament I've played in, so yeah, for myself, it's a really big deal.
Pinballers have come from across North America and beyond to flip out, like Sydney Walmsley, whose energetic flair might just be her secret weapon.
Passionate. I mean, all 3, like my mom, my dad, and I, all of us won our state champion.
And on the pin scene, this unassuming 18-year-old is something of a celebrity, maybe even a pinball wizard, despite his calm demeanor.
I look calm, not always feel calm though.
Jason Zaller was #1 on the International Flipper Pinball Association rankings before he was bumped to #2 last week by this guy, reigning world champion Escher Lefkoff from Colorado. A win in Edmonton would move Zaller back to the top.
So that's why I'm here, because I got to keep working or else he's going to increase the gap.
Like any high-level competition, getting here isn't easy. It takes skill, practice, and time, becoming familiar with the various machines you may be faced with.
Every single one of them has a rule set that's attached to them, and you need to understand that rule set to be able to go ahead and maximize the scoring.
Rules knowledge, reflexes, you need fast reflexes.
The event draws fans in person and over a live web stream. Hardware and $70,000 in prize money is up for grabs, but for players, it's all about being part of the competition.
Tons of world-class players are here this weekend.
So for a few days, Edmonton is the planetary pinnacle of pro pinball. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Edmonton.
That's a lot of P's in that. Okay, after the break, running for change.
We all need to be a little bit kinder.
Turning a troubled past into a fulfilling future. We leave you tonight with a runner from Vancouver Island who overcame hurdles in her past by helping others race towards a hopeful future. CTV's Adam Sawatsky has Sheila's story.
When Sheila German first started running, she was leaving a lot behind.
I had a bit of a mixed up family.
Sheila says her and her siblings grew up with a single mom who struggled to raise them and regularly uprooted them in search of work.
And just that instability, that stays with you.
Sheila says she attended 11 schools before running away at 14 and being placed in a series of foster homes.
These families, compared to your own family, they were almost worse.
But while her life turned tougher, Sheila says she's grateful her spirit grew stronger.
It could have gone a different way.
And around the time she began running, Sheila started turning her life in a new direction.
Just met the love of my life, and we've been together for 45 years.
Sheila says she's worked hard with her husband, kids, and grandkids to create the stable family she never had, and that she's never taken for granted.
Growing up without, I know what that feels like.
A feeling that possibly fueled Sheila that day she was running and suddenly felt inspired.
I didn't want to just put a race on. I wanted to give back.
So Sheila created the Women for Women Walk, Jog, and Run fundraiser in Campbell River to create educational bursaries for single moms.
Because it's needed, and we all need to be a little bit kinder.
That first year, a couple dozen people raised a few $1,000s, which inspired Sheila to keep going.
And we need to continue to help one another.
Now Sheila says that she and her small team of volunteers are preparing to welcome hundreds to their 20th annual race after raising almost $90,000 for more than a dozen community organizations that now supports women and families in need.
The more that you give, the more you get back, and it becomes contagious.
And instead of running from past pain, Sheila says there's healing in helping others race towards hopeful futures. Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Victoria.
And that's our newscast for this Saturday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Good night. Until tomorrow. Bye for now.